So prophecies of Christ and the life of David. As I said, these are quite beautiful things. There are some in here I'd have to say, some of them are absolutely solid, and some of them are a little more speculative maybe. But I think as we would go along, you're going to find many that will say, "Wow, that's true," and others you can look into later if you want. So let's start here with a first one. We're going to be looking through 2 Samuel for the most part. 2 Samuel and the life of David. So we're going to kind of compare 2 Samuel, the life of David, to stories in the life of Christ. So we're going to look at the beginning of David's life all the way to the end of David's life. And all in there you're going to see Christ and events in Christ's life. So it gives us an extra understanding of what Christ went through. And that quite obviously Christ, the Messiah was Christ indeed. That's one of the things that really blows me away. Prophecies are true. So both from Bethlehem. Now, this is a simple one. This is David. He was a son of the Ephrathite of Bethlehem, Judah. Now, that doesn't tell you a whole lot about David. It tells you about his father, right? But as you go along, and I didn't really get into this, but David indeed goes back to Bethlehem to see his family, and his family continues to live there. So more than likely, he was indeed from Bethlehem. Not to mention, Bethlehem is called the city of David. So, and then we can look at Christ. Was Christ from Bethlehem? Okay, we know that, right? For unto you is born this day in the city of David, which is Bethlehem, a Savior, which is Christ the Lord. Okay, we're both from Bethlehem. Some of them are simple, some of them are a little more deep, and this is a simpler one. Let's look at another one. They were both sent to the front lines to save their kingdom. Now, this is fun too. And Jesse said unto David, he says to his son, "Take this for thy brethren, a bushel of foods," and take him some food, some cheese and breads, and run to the camp of thy brethren against where the Philistines were. So that's where he goes. He goes to the Philistines. So it's David going to the front lines of the Philistines, right? Okay, you know this story. And we can look at Christ. And what did Christ do? Came from up there, came down to the front lines as a man. Yeah, that's right. To do what? To save his kingdom. We're his kingdom. We're his people. So we can go look at that. For God sent not his Son into the world to condemn the world, but that the world through him might be saved. Indeed, we have David up here, and we have Jesse up here, his father, and God down there, sending his son to the camp, into the world. This is a little more simple one as well. But anyway, you add them all together, and it's just a beautiful story. It's like, wow, he really did that? Yeah, he did it. Both receive all things from their king. Now, yeah, David, he received a whole lot from his king Saul, right? He received wealth, and he received his daughter, lots of stuff. And let's look at it. And the men of Israel, they said, "Have you seen this man that is come up, Goliath? Surely to defy Israel is he come up." And you can think of who else defied God himself, the fallen, all the fallen angels, but surely Lucifer himself. So you'd see that depiction right there. But surely to defy Israel as he come up. And it shall be that the man who killeth him, who killeth Goliath, well, that king will enrich him with great riches, and will give him his daughter, and make his father's house free in Israel. Now, I don't know if you see anything there, but there's a few things there to think about. Saul is going to enrich David with riches. Saul is going to give David his daughter. Saul is going to make David's house, his father's house, free. Free. That's a good thing. Free is good, right? Free is a very good thing. And we're going to expand on this right here, and you're going to see it a little better. Now this is another. This is the same verse, 1 Samuel 17:25, but I replaced it. Some of my words are in here. So this is up above is you see a lot of hymns, but down on the bottom, I replaced him with Jesus to give us the idea that these two stories of David and Jesus, they mesh over each other in beautiful ways. So read the bottom here, and it says, "And the men of Israel said, Have ye seen this man that is come up, Goliath, surely to defy Israel is he come up? And it shall be that the man who killeth him, God," right? Because it's a reflection of Saul and God in a way. We won't go too far with that. But God will enrich Jesus with riches, and will give Jesus this daughter. And who are we? We are sons and daughters. We are the bride. This is the daughter. Saul's daughter will be given to David. We are one and given to Christ. We are that church, that daughter. "And make Jesus' father's house free in Israel." And this is the beautiful part, is that what did Jesus come down here to do? He died to set us free. So he set us free. He gained riches, he gained the bride, and he set us free. The debt's paid. And if you didn't catch it totally, we're going to look at it again, because and you'll catch it here. You'll definitely catch it here. I'm just going to read it again. "And the men of Israel said unto him, they said, This man that is come up, Goliath, surely to defy Israel is he come up. And it shall be that the man who killeth Goliath, the king, will enrich him with great riches, and will give him his daughter, and make his father's house free in Israel." Free, 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 free. We're not going to spend an hour on this, but I happen to make a couple slides, and it's kind of long. But read it again with me, and then I'm going to show you how beautiful it is. It's "And the men of Israel, they said, Have ye seen this man that is come up, Goliath, surely to defy Israel is he come up? And it shall be that the man who killeth him, Saul, God will enrich Jesus with great riches, and will give Jesus his daughter, and make Jesus' father's house free." And what do we have? "If the Son therefore shall make you free, shall be free indeed." So this is the depiction of David. He's going up against Goliath. It's like Christ going up against Lucifer. And what does he do? He wins that bride. David wins Michal, the daughter, the bride. Jesus wins the bride, us. And anyway, and we are made free. Okay, let's go on. The enemy provokes both for 40 days. This one's a little speculative, but it says, "And the Philistines drew near morning and evening, and presented himself 40 days. And Goliath said, Come, and I will give your flesh to the beasts of the field." And this is wild, because they're out there 40 days, and Goliath's out there, and he's saying, bring somebody down here. I will fight him. I will kill him, and I will feed his flesh to the beasts of the field. I'm going to win. It sounds kind of like Lucifer, Come on down here. Come on down here, and I will defeat you. I will kill you, and feed your flesh to the beasts of the field. Well, let's look at if this story sort of occurred in the life of Christ, about this provoking for 40 days. Okay, let's look at it. "And he was there in the wilderness 40 days, tempted of Satan, and he was with the wild beasts, and the angels did minister unto him." So you can see the parallels. And most certainly, when he threw that smooth stone, it wasn't David throwing the stone and whacking Goliath right in that sweet spot and killing Goliath. That was God. That was the angels ministering unto him. Most definitely. Well, let's look at another one. Both fulfilled the Genesis prophecy. Now this one, you know this one. You've heard this one. Genesis 3:15. And there's some levels to it. And let's take a peek at it. This is about the heel and the head and they're crushed, and they represent things that would come to happen in Christ's life. So let's read it. And I will put enmity, this conflict between thy seed, Eve's seed, Satan's seed, Satan's seed and the woman's seed, and the seed shall crush thy head. So it's like the seed of Eve, the descendants of Eve, Christ shall crush thy head, Satan. So that's kind of what's going on. There's prophecy about Christ. And we're going to see this kind of played out in David and the life of Christ. So let's look and see what if this head is surely in the life of David and in the life of Christ. This head that is crushed. Now this is one that's I'm not so sure about, but obviously more it is a prophecy pointing to Christ, as we know. So this is a verse I have to share. All power is given unto me in heaven and in earth, and I am he that liveth and was dead, and behold, I am alive forevermore, and have the keys to hell and of death. Now, if the head of this seed is crushed, if this serpent's head is crushed, it sounds kind of fatal. You know, you get hit in the head, you get crushed in the head, it can be fatal. If you get crushed, you get hit, bruised in the foot, in the heel, maybe it's not so fatal. But in this story, this seed, his head, is crushed. So if that's Lucifer, which we know it is, if his head is crushed, well, how so? And we look at this verse here. All power is given to Christ on heaven and earth, and he has the keys to hell and death. And my thought is, what is left for the fallen? There's nothing left. He's crushed. His head is crushed. Christ is now the head. Absolutely. And we can look in David's story here, and there's also a head going on. You remember that story, right? He's out there, and he does something crazy. I haven't seen that done. Therefore David ran, and he stood upon the Philistine, and he took his sword, and he cut off his head. And then David took it to Jerusalem. And that's kind of, in my mind, kind of a depiction of this power being transferred back to Israel, back to God. In the same way Christ did the same thing. He cut off that head of the serpent. He crushed the head of that serpent. He took that kingdom back. That power back. Let's look at the heel here. Now, I know you guys have looked at this, but I wanted to defend the view, and I wanted to, well, what I ended up doing was going down a little rabbit hole on this whole idea here. And so there's a few levels to it, but it's fun anyway. But anyway, when we saw the head story of that prophecy in Genesis. It's in the life of Christ, and it's also definitely in the life of Samuel. So what was the other thing that was bruised and crushed besides the head? It was the foot part, the heel. It was that heel. Let's look at it. And also thou shalt crush his heel. Okay. Is the heel also in the life of Christ? Well, yeah, of course it is. That the scripture may be fulfilled, he that eateth bread with me hath lifted up his heel against me. Now, anyway, this heel, this isn't Christ's heel. This is Judas's heel. It was lifted up against Christ. So it's a little different. You could speculate a little bit there. But this is actually a prophecy, and it has two heels in two particular places of prophecy. Actually, three. So this is Christ speaking in John 13:18 about Judas lifting up his heel against him. And then we go look at who else other than David who talks about the same thing, because Christ is simply quoting David. He says, yea, mine own familiar friend, just like Judas was Christ's familiar friend, in whom I trusted. He trusted him very much, even with that money bag. Which did eat of my bread. Judas ate that bread, didn't he? He who dips in with me. Yes, he shall betray me, right? He who eats my bread has lifted up his heel against me. Indeed, Judas betrayed Christ. Anyway, you've definitely seen these before. So let's go to the next little level here to explain. And this is just to explain a little further about this head. It's the head that is crushed. It's crushed by this heel. Let's read it again. And I will put enmity between thy seed, Satan, and her seed, the woman, and the seed shall crush thy head. So there's the head of the serpent. That's the seed of Satan. And the heel, well, that's the seed of the woman. You're like, well, that's true. I know that. Some others like, I'm confused. But let's look at it again here. That's the head. The head's being crushed. It's being crushed by Christ himself. We look at the rest of it. The heel. Well, the heel. What happened to Christ's heel? Well, in prophecy in Genesis, it says, "And thou, Satan, shalt crush his heel." So it's the same depiction there, same kind of idea, but in one instance, the serpent bruises and crushes the heel. But at the same time, the heel is crushing the very head of the serpent. So somebody's actually winning here, right? And then, of course, there's this Mazzaroth up there in the sky, the constellation. I'm not going to get into that, but that's Ophiuchus and his depicting of this warrior and this serpent. Okay, anyway, let's go on. This is the rabbit hole I went down. It'll only take a moment, but my thought was about this heel that was bruised. It was Christ's heel. And you've thought about these things before. I thought, well, was his heel crushed physically? Well, I don't know. Let me look into it. So here's four common ways that Rome decided they needed to crucify people. And if you look at maybe the second one, you can see where his feet are dangling down there. And I'll show you in a minute where there have been nails found in the heels of individuals. I should say one individual. It was through the heel bone. And so we'll look at that here. And this is to help you understand about the heel. You know, this is a rabbit hole I went down. Was the heel physically crushed by Satan? Well, let's look. Satan shall crush his heel. Okay. Now on the right, you got the post. You got this nail going through the heel. And you say, wow, goes right on through there. On the left, the image there is an actual image of a man, Yohanan, out there in Jerusalem, about the same era as Christ. And he was found in a tomb with this nail stuck through his heel. And they said, well, this guy was crucified. It's a pretty wild thought. And they just left the nail in there. And you can see the hook on it. Something went on there. I don't know why they put the hook. Maybe something was going on there. Smashed the end for some reason, didn't want to get away. Anyway, for these things were done, that the scripture should be fulfilled, but a bone of him shall not be broken. And you're like, well, now how do we work that out? How does this nail go through there? If we go down this rabbit hole and we think about this nail going through Christ's heel to fulfill that prophecy, but a bone of him is not going to be broken. What do we do with that? Here's my rabbit hole. Satan shall crush his heel. It's a little closer look at that heel. And I got to thinking, well, could it go through the bones of the heel? Well, maybe it could. So I was looking up at these x-rays. Said, hey, there's a little black spot in there. Maybe it would go right on through there. And I asked my wife. She's a physician. She says, well, yeah, that is possible. There's ligaments in there and some meat and stuff. Said, okay, well, that's interesting. But then I remembered this quote, and so I decided to share this whole rabbit hole with you. It says, and I am poured out like water. This is David speaking again. Like water, and all my bones are out of joint. They part my garments among them, and they cast lots upon my vesture. Deliver my soul. This is David speaking again. He prophesies about Christ. It's no wonder that the life of David, the life of Christ, is seen in the life of David. So anyway, you might say, hey, Christ's heel was indeed crushed according to the prophecy, but not crushed as in crushing a bone, but bones that are out of joint. So anyway, let's be done with this rabbit hole, and let's go on to both envied by enemies. Now this is Samuel, and Saul was very wroth, and this saying displeased him. There's a saying here. Saul's out there, and he's just so disgusted by this wonderful thing that these people are singing. It says, and he said, they have ascribed unto David 10,000s dead. Well, it's sad for them, but it's good for the kingdom. And to me they have ascribed only thousands dead. And Saul eyed David that day on. There he is eyeing David. David's excited. People are excited. Those people in the background. Did this envy occur in Christ's life as well? It did. For Pilate knew that the chief priests had delivered Jesus for envy. Envy, right. Everybody wanted to be David. Everybody wanted to be Christ. They were greatly blessed. This one's fun. Both paid a huge bride price. This one's a beautiful one. Did David pay a great, huge price for his wife, Michal? I think he did. What we were looking at before, what Saul said, he said, do something for me, David, and I'll give you riches, and I'll give you my daughter, I'll give all these things. This is what he said. He says to David, the king desireth no other price for the bride, but 100 of these skins of the Philistines, to be avenged of the king's enemies. But Saul sought to make David die by the hand of the Philistines, by this very order. That's quite a huge price. That's death for the price of a bride. You think David knew that going into the Philistines? Yeah, he knew it. He knew it all right. Did this occur in the life of Christ as well? Was there a huge price, a bride price for in the life of Christ? Husbands, Paul says, love your wives. But we don't stop there. We don't ever stop there. Even as Christ also loved the church and gave himself for it. They both paid a great, huge bride price. Let's look at another one. Both attacked, but they slipped away. This one's just an interesting one. Indeed, David was out there with Saul one day, and Saul really didn't like him. Remember, Saul was just talking about how they're singing these great songs about David killing tens of thousands. And Saul did something one day in his disgust. Saul sought to smite David even to the wall with this javelin, but he slipped away out of Saul's presence, and he smote that javelin into that wall, and David fled. It's a wild thought. That's ridiculous. Who does that? Crazy people. Or super, super, super envious people. Did this slipping away, did this also occur in the life of Christ? I think we can kind of remember stories like that. Well, here's one in particular. Then took they up stones, like the javelin, to cast at him. But Jesus hid himself, and slipping away from the temple grounds, and he so passed by. And you know, this is because it wasn't his appointed time. Because God is on a timeline. Everything is on a perfect timeline. That's why we're even here on this appointment. Because it's appointed. It's appointed time. Wasn't his appointed time to die there. David was not appointed to die right there by the hand of Saul. They both did slip away by these crazy actions of these crazy people. This was a funny I found. I laughed. I was showing Stan. Where's Stan? Showing Stan. Anger therapy. This is ridiculous. This was Saul. And you can see Saul sitting there in the chair, and there's the psychologist with the sheet, the red sheet. You hang in front of the bull, and the bull goes, and he goes charging after you. Well, that's David for Saul. Saul could not stand David. Not at all. Let's look at some more. Both innocent, but yet they were still betrayed. Was David innocent? Sometimes. Let's look at it. David, he put his life in his own hands when he slew the Philistines. This is Jonathan speaking. So why then wilt thou sin against innocent blood, Dad, to slay David without a cause? And there he is, thinking. He wasn't really thinking, though. He just wanted to kill him. Just want to make excuses to kill him. Just like Satan, want to make excuses to kill him. All right? Did this happen in the life of Christ? Was Christ innocent? Was Christ betrayed? Judas saying, I have sinned in that I have betrayed innocent blood. And they said, what's that to us? We don't care. Sound like somebody familiar? Fallen? Yep. It's the same thing. Same character, same mind, same nature. Let's look at another one. Both exiled until their murderous king was dead. This one involves a little bit of a time prophecy, a little time. So it's anyway. This is one I was speculating on, but we'll look at it anyway. And this is exiled until their murderous king was dead. It says about Saul here. After the death of Saul, David returned. Okay, so that's what happened. After Saul was out and about, killing the Philistines, what happened? Saul fell on his sword. And then David returned. Did something similar happen in the life of Christ? Let's go see. And Herod dies. And it says, and an angel of the Lord appeared in a dream in Egypt, saying, for they are dead which sought the child's life. And he arose and he came into the land of Israel. The same depiction, same story, same meshing of David and Christ's lives. Okay, let's look at another one. I think we're getting close. Both kings of Israel. Yeah, both kings, right? Was David a king? David was a king. Was Christ a king? He's my king. It says, the people of Judah met with David, and he was their new king. And they anointed David king of Israel. Israel and Judah. Everything. Did it happen with Christ? Well, here's a wild thought. And they set up over his head his accusation, written, this is Jesus, the King of the Jews. And in Revelation, the Lamb is the Lord of lords and the King of kings. Yeah, he's the king over all the kings of earth. Completely, totally. Both were definitely kings. This is a fun one. Both were 30 years old when anointed into the service. This is interesting. This is very interesting. And I know there's more to be said here, but I haven't found all that is to be said. Maybe Kimber or Sean could think about some of these things with the 30 years old and how important and interesting that is. Anyway, David was 30 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 40 years. So that's David. He began reigning as king at age 30. It's kind of young. But he was blessed. Did it happen in the life of Christ? Well, being baptized, the Holy Ghost descended, and Jesus began to be about 30 years old. The same situation occurs again. Also in Joseph, as we saw, Joseph was also 30 years old when he became second in command over Egypt. You can see also in Saul's life, Saul was also 30 years old when he became king before David was. Very interesting. Let's look at it. Numbers, this is the interesting part. Numbers says from 30 years old and upward until 50 years old shalt thou number them. And all the kingdom and all that enter into perform the service, to do the work in the tabernacle of the congregation. They were like priests. They were workers. They were laborers. A specific job was given to them, and they did it very well. There's the mesh again. It's meshing together their stories, their lives. It's because God knows everything from the end, from the beginning. And he plays it out in front of us so we could watch it over and over. Let's look at another one. Both tempted many times. Now, indeed, David was definitely tempted, right? He was tempted up there on the roof. He was tempted numerous times. Christ was indeed tempted. Remember the 3 times he was tempted? Yes. And it came to pass that evening, David was doing something with his thumbs. He was twiddling his thumbs. And that David arose from off his bed, and he walked upon the roof of the king's house. And from the roof he saw a woman washing herself. And the woman was very beautiful to look upon. What was her name? As he's looking at her. Yeah, Bathsheba. That was Bathsheba he's looking down there, right over there on the right. Did a temptation occur also in the life of Christ? Yes. Did a similar temptation occur in the life of Christ? Well, you can determine that. It says, then the devil takes him to the highest point of the temple, then to an exceeding high mountain, just like David on the roof, and he showeth him all the kingdoms of the world. He showeth him the kingdoms, just like David saw the woman. And the woman, as we know, is a church. It's a people. It's kind of a kingdom. He showed him all the kingdoms of the world and their glory. Glory, kind of like a beautiful woman. And said, all these things will I give thee if thou wilt just fall down and worship me. Jesus, Yeshua. But a different situation occurred here. Christ did not fall to this temptation, whereas David did fall. And it cost him dearly a lifetime of evil that rose up within his own house. Sons all died. Almost. Let's go to another one. Both betrayed by their friend. This one's kind of long. This one's interesting, though. Yeah, this one's pretty interesting. And Absalom, he says, now, after David became king, well, he fell. He was on that rooftop, right? And he fell. He looked down there, he saw the woman, brought her on up there, and they got together. And some bad things took place. And then he was sorry, but the consequences still occur. And one of the consequences that occurred was that his sons, they rose up against his own family. His first son raped his daughter. Then the second son decided, well, I can't have that. So he killed that son for doing it. And later, the other son also fell away. And so what happens here is that Absalom's out and about after he's exiled from the kingdom. Absalom, David's son, for killing his brother. And Absalom's out there, and people start saying, wow, we like you, Absalom. We want you to be king over us instead of David. But David's king right now. But Absalom's like, but they like me, so maybe I should do what they're talking about, what they're counseling me to do. And so here it is. Absalom, he sends for Ahithophel, who is actually David's counselor. David's in Jerusalem right now. But Absalom, he's outside Jerusalem. And he calls for Ahithophel, this counselor of David, and the conspiracy was strong with this counselor of David to Absalom. Ahithophel shouldn't be talking with this guy, with Absalom. And one told David, saying, Ahithophel is among the conspirators with Absalom. Yikes, that's not good. Thankfully, David did have another counselor, Hushai, who was favored David. Very interesting. Yeah, and this was also kind of rabbit trails on rabbit trails. But this story of it's actually a story of two counselors. There's Ahithophel and Hushai, two of them. And they both counsel David. They both advise David. David, he appreciates their counsel. But eventually when Absalom creates this coup out there, and the one counselor, Ahithophel, he moves off with Absalom. He is tempted by this, and he fails. But the other counselor, who was Hushai, he continues to serve David. In that way, it's also a depiction of Christ and Lucifer, who are indeed working with God, but in the end, one remained faithful and the other one was not. But anyway, we're not going to talk about that. But I was thinking about that a little bit ago as I was going through. So anyway, both were betrayed by their very friend. David was betrayed by his very favorite counselor. Did it happen in the life of Christ? It did, of course. And Judas Iscariot, who was one of the disciples, he went off to the chief priests in order to betray him to them. So again, you have on the top, you have a Ahithophel, and you have Judas, and you have the counselor and a disciple, and they're betraying and conspiracy, and they're lining up to form this little pattern. But that's not the end of the pattern. It continues. Oh boy, does it continue. Both betrayed by their own tribe, Judah. And we've talked about this before. Which is kind of a rabbit hole as well. But when you look at these individuals, Ahithophel, the counselor, who betrayed David, and when you look at Judas, who betrayed Christ, there's a similarity in many things. Of course, anyway, they were both in Judah, and they were both part of the, how do I say it? They were both in the cities inherited by Judah. So, it could have been plenty of it could be any of the tribes, but it happened to be that in these stories here, they were the very tribe that was betraying the very individuals, as you'll see. Anyway, let's look at it here. Betrayal by their own tribe. Now here is Absalom, and he sends for Ahithophel the Gilonite, who is of Judea. This Ahithophel, he lives in Judea. He lives in the city of Gilo. It was a city inherited by Judah. So you could speculate that, hey, he was a descendant of Judah. Huh? Was there someone in the life of Christ who was betrayed and was a descendant of Judah, or a descendant of that inheritance? I know it's getting kind of like, what is he talking about? But let's look at it here, and then I'll explain it here. Because they were both betrayed by the same tribe of Judah. And here it is in Matthew 26. Then one of the 12, called Judas Iscariot, and when you look at the word Iscariot in Greek, you look at it in the Hebrew, it's Kirioth. So this Judas Iscariot, he went unto the chief priests, and he said, "What will ye give me if I deliver Jesus unto you?" You see, both betraying him, right? So that's confirmed. They both betray him, right? They both have people betraying him. But were they actually of the same tribe? It says all this betrayal happening in the same tribe, in the same family, by the same friends. Whoops, I clicked the button. I don't know how to fix that from here. Oh, wait, I guess I could, huh? So you have to fix it. Of the same tribe. So they're both betrayed by that very same tribe. Let's look at it. Are they? Joshua says this was the inheritance of the tribe of Judah. There's Goshen and Holon, Gilo, Kirioth, and like 100 more. So what I'm saying here is that back in the day, the tribe of Judah inherited the cities of Gilo and Kirioth. And when you look down past that inheritance, you see this Gilonite, Ahithophel, who betrays David of Judah. And you see also in the life of Christ, Judas of Kirioth, Iscariot, which is Kirioth, who betrays Christ. So they are indeed all of the same tribe. And I wouldn't look at that, except you go over here and you look at Genesis 37, and you see that Judah said unto his brethren, "Let us sell Joseph." He was betrayed by Judah as well. And you wouldn't expect the very, some of these top tribes to betray one another, you know? You don't expect these things. But indeed, they were both betrayed, and they were betrayed by their very tribe. Let's look at another one. Both betrayers hang themselves. Now, we know that Judas betrayed and hung himself. Did someone in the life of Samuel betray him and hang himself? Well, it did happen. Let's look at it. When Ahithophel, remember that counselor? That one of the two counselors who was David's counselor, but he went over to Absalom's realm over there. When Ahithophel saw that his advice had not been followed by Absalom, he saddled his donkey and he set out for his house in his hometown, which was Gilo. And he put his house in order and then hanged himself. And so he died and was buried in his father's tomb. So well thought. The stories do mesh. And it was actually the reason he hung himself was because, you know, Ahithophel, he was serving David, but when he left David for Absalom, and he began counseling Absalom, well, he wanted to be more than he already was. And what he actually suggested was, Absalom, you need to hunt down your father David and kill him. That's what he suggested. After counseling David prior, he now wants to kill David. So there's another depiction of Satan all over again. But he hangs himself, just like in the story down here. So Judas went away and hung himself. The same depiction. And not only did Judas and Ahithophel hang themselves for betraying their people, but I was thinking about other people that were hung. Well, indeed, there was the baker in the story of Joseph. The story of Joseph is all over typifying Christ. And there was Haman. He was hung by his own noose. Anyway, they were indeed both betrayers, and they both hung themselves. Oh, but the rabbit hole gets a little deeper. Okay, this is a little extra piece. So Ahithophel, he betrays David, and he goes on over with Absalom. But what else occurs here? Well, in 2 Samuel it says that Bathsheba, the daughter of Eliam, that's who she was. Bathsheba was the daughter of Eliam. Who's Eliam? Well, Eliam was the son of Ahithophel, the Gilonite. So it's more than likely, those are my words. It's more than likely the colluding Ahithophel was actually Bathsheba's grandfather. So this guy who had been counseling David, he moves over to start counseling Absalom in this coup. But this guy, Ahithophel, was actually the very grandfather of this whole problem in the first place. He was the grandfather of Bathsheba, who he was tempted and fell for. This big vicious circle goes around and around as you start failing God to obedience. And we can look and see what Jesus says about this vicious circle. He says, "And ye shall be betrayed both by parents, by brethren, kinsfolks, friends, and some of you shall they cause to be put to death." That was Ahithophel. He said, he counseled Absalom, "I want David dead." So that's the little rabbit hole that gets deeper. That's just interesting and sad, but we can learn from it. Not too many left. But they both desire God's will. This one's beautiful. I really like this one. But above their own safety. Was David honorable to God? For a while. Here and there. He failed, but he wanted to be honorable. That's why he remained king. And here we will see that David was indeed very honorable. And not only was he honorable, but he depicted Christ exactly, almost word for word, in what he does here. Now this is how David desired God's will. David says, as he's leaving Jerusalem, this is when Absalom was going to take over, and he didn't want to fight with Absalom. He didn't want to destroy Jerusalem in war, so he's like, I'm going to leave. So he leaves. David says, return the ark. He's talking to the priest, Zadok the priest. They're walking out, and he says, if I find favor in the sight of the Lord, then he will bring me back. He will bring me back again and show me both it, the ark, and his habitation, Jerusalem, his kingdom. But if he should say that I have no delight in you, David, then let him do to me as seems good to him. Those are hard words. You know, we usually want the best for ourselves, right? We want to keep ourselves alive, in power. We want to do the very best for us. So this is a little backwards. But see, this is the nature that we really want. This is that nature we desire, to do God's will. Did this also occur in the life of Christ? Was Christ also desiring God's will, even above his own safety? Remember that night, that evening in the Garden of Gethsemane? Christ was there, and he said some things. He says, Father, if thou be willing, remove this cup from me. But nevertheless, not my will, but thy will be done. So this is another depiction that takes place. As you look at the colors, they parallel in interesting ways. And you can be the judge to say if they fit beautifully or not. The blue is I find favor. On the top, on the bottom, if thou be willing. It's like, if I have favor. The green, bring me back again. It's a positive thing. And on the right, you see, remove this cup from me, Father. And there's a but. But. He could have just left it there and said, this is good for me. But he said, but. Do to me as seems good to him, God. Just like Jesus said, but thy will be done. Yes, it is a beautiful thing. Let's look at just a few more here. Both died at Jerusalem. Indeed, they did. You can look at the life of David and see, indeed. It says that, so David slept with his fathers, and he was buried in the city of David, which is Jerusalem. And then we can look in the life of Christ, and we know what happened there. They brought Jesus to Golgotha, Jerusalem, and they crucified him. Both die in Jerusalem. But the most beautiful thing, the most amazing thing, is that our king, our priest, reigns forever. Now, this is interesting here, because Paul says something here that is of such wonderful news to us. Paul says, let me freely speak unto you of the patriarch David, that he is both dead and he is buried, and his tomb is with us unto this very day right here. He, David, seeing before, he spake of this resurrection, that Christ's soul was not left in hell, neither his flesh did see corruption, but this Jesus hath God raised up. So while David reflected Christ, and Christ reflected David in ways, David died and he's buried on this earth. He is here, is what Paul is saying, but Christ is raised up. And we know that, right? Because we have an high priest in heaven who is well acquainted with our griefs. Now, this is the idea is, are these all coincidences? Were there some of them in here? Were there some in here that were like, yeah, that's a parallel? Anybody have agree that some of them were parallels? And maybe some of them were a little more speculative. But in the end, we can see, as we read the beautiful stories of Christ himself, we can see this beautiful nature that we desire. It's God's nature, Christ's nature, and we want it. And as we look further in the life of David, we can see these things also. This nature that we want to have. It is beautiful. But this is what's going on here. Revelation says, I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end, saith the Lord, which is to, and was to come, the Almighty, declaring the end from the beginning, and from ancient times the things that are not yet done, saying, my counsel shall stand, his counsel shall stand, his words stand. He knows the ends from the beginning. That's why he places these stories in people's lives. It's why we have these prophecies. It's why we have the beautiful sanctuary story, the plan of salvation, all these beautiful things in these words given by God through Christ to help us understand more surely what God is all about, to help us be that in that same nature. And that will conclude it. So I hope you learned a few things from these. Definitely parallels to be seen there. And I hope we learn and this week take home beautiful treasures that I know all these speakers are going to be sharing with us. It's going to be golden. And, even more incredible, as I was thinking, as in our future, as events take place, many will be given more information, more beauty, more visions, more dreams, many things. And I pray that this ministry will continue to be a place where people can share those things, and many people be blessed. Thank you, Father, for blessing me with these wonderful things and blessing the audience, and may we richly be blessed this Tabernacles, and thank you so much.